The rhino poaching epidemic has reached epic proportions. In the last 4 weeks, more than 100 rhino have been killed. That's almost 4 animals every single day. The rhino death toll for 2013 is about to pass the 800 mark, almost double the number that was killed last year. Rhino conservation efforts are in full swing all over the country. But are they actually having an impact? The Kruger National Park has been hardest hit, and Ike Phaahla from SANPARKS actually joins us this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Eben, and thanks for having us.
The rhino graph seems to be going the wrong way at the moment, despite all the efforts that's being made. Is there a sense that we might be starting to lose this war against poaching of rhinos?
The right way to put it would be that we're not losing the fight as yet, but we are also not winning the fight. The numbers, as you mentioned, at this stage, they're standing at 801 throughout the country. Kruger National Park, as you rightfully say, standing at 491. It's a big concern for us. Every animal that gets killed is a big concern. And I think the trade in wildlife, illegal trade in wildlife, it's a global problem. It's a global crisis that needs to be addressed.
When we talk about the poachers, can we put a face to these people that are poaching specifically rhino? We get a sense in South Africa that it's Mozambicans, especially at the Kruger Park, desperate Mozambican men coming across the border and poaching rhino. But that isn't really the case, is it?
Well, at level 1, which is the foot soldiers, we have lots and lots of Mozambicans coming. Remember that the Kruger National Park shares a border with Mozambique, and it's a porous border, a border that is not being patrolled adequately, in our view, and that needs to be closed up. And when in 1994, when the Peace Parks was established, there was an agreement that villagers were going to be moved out of the Mozambican site. That hasn't taken place. But we understand that Mozambican officials are working feverishly to get those villages out, because those villages are being used as springboards into the Kruger National Park. At present, yes, Mozambique is our biggest problem. The other thing to understand is that there is quite a lot of poverty in Mozambique. People are being promised 100,000 rands to get a rhino horn, and that's a lot of money in terms of the scales of living in that country. And I think that draws a lot of attraction. They see poachers driving new cars, building houses, and they want to be the same.
The middleman is always the one who's making the money, though. And in South Africa, we seem to have a problem with Vietnamese men and South African men who are in cahoots in dealing with that. How do you tackle them?
It's criminality, and I think that our security cluster, the NPA, the Hawks, are working very hard around the clock to try and arrest those people, because if we can get to the kingpins, I can tell you now and guarantee you that we will see rhino poaching going down. But as long as we have people who are carrying big bags of money, as long as we have desperate Mozambican villagers who are desperate to get a better living, and they don't have any opportunities to earn a living, we're going to see this scourge continuing.
Let's talk about the sophistication of those Mozambicans you're talking about on the ground, and the kind of threat that they pose to your people who are trying to protect rhinos. How sophisticated are they, and what kind of threat do you have to deal with? As
we speak, Eben, there might be 12 to 20 groups of people. They travel in groups of 3, but we have noticed a trend now that they travel in groups of about 6, with one having an assault rifle. And that assault rifle is meant to immobilize our rangers. Fortunately, we haven't suffered any casualties at the hand of poachers, except in friendly fire where we lost 1 ranger. And there's Andrew Desmet, a well-documented case, who was injured in the line of that. But they do carry weapons to try and kill those people who are actually trying to protect the rhino. We have several initiatives that we have undertaken, and that is retraining our rangers so that they can defend themselves. The second one is to try and bolster security around the Kruger National Park. But in the words of the commanding officer, the retired Major General Johan Jooste, this fight is going to be won outside of the reserves. Once we get the public committed and coming out and informing on those syndicate bosses, that's the only way we're going to cut this and win this. And also for our police enforcement agencies to be proactive also in following up some of the leads.
I wanted to ask you about replacing of security personnel within the park itself. How big a problem is corruption amongst your own and the involvement amongst your own, and then how do you deal with that?
Our CEO has said on record that he's not leading an organization of angels. And we are investigating our people. They know that they are being watched closely. The reason why we undertook to in-source security was because we wanted to tighten all the control areas. And I can tell you, last week on the 29th, there were 2 women who were arrested. And those women were carrying daga, they were carrying contraband. It means when they came into Phalaborwa, they must have paid off somebody. When they came to the Kruger gate, our security, the new ones who have just started their work, they refused to take a bribe of 300 rands, and it was taken up to 1,000 rand. They refused, and those people are behind bars as we speak.
Final question, and it's not a loaded question, but will we have Rhino in the Kruger Park in 10 to 15 years' time?
We will have Rhino. We've just done a census, the results which are going to be made public, and we have a healthy population that is still thriving within the Kruger National Park. One has to remember that these animals also can sense when they are being hunted, moving away from the hotspots, and we also are tightening up, and we are doing everything that we can at present. It seems to be yielding positive results. In October alone, between the 11th and the end of October, we had arrested 19 people, which is a record number of people that we've arrested. The sentences that we have seen the Justice Department meting out is also another one that gives us hope that in the end, we will get on top of this situation.
Well, the entire country, I think the whole world, Ike, is looking at South Africa as a case study in dealing with rhino poaching, and I think it's a much more complex problem than people would like to give it credit for. But thank you very much for joining us. We will pop in with you periodically over the next year or so to see how initiatives are going and how the fight against rhino poaching is proceeding, because it's a concern for everybody.
I'm sure it is, and thank you very much for having invited us. Much appreciated.